Good morning, everyone. I want to welcome you to this special technical track on Sense and Avoid Technologies. My name is Raja Suresh, and I'm with General Dynamics Mission Systems, and it's my privilege to be your session chair. I'd like to explain the ground rules before we get started over here. Please either turn off your cell phones or put it on silent, vibrate, one of those non-intrusive modes. We'd greatly appreciate that. So I just adjusted mine, so please double check and make sure you've done the same thing. Number two, AUVSI does not allow photography or videography within the sessions. So please do not use your camera or iPhone to take pictures of the audience or pictures of the screen or whatever. All these charts will be made available on the AUVSI website, so we would greatly appreciate your cooperation in respecting the ground rules that are laid out by AUVSI. The way we are going to do it this morning, there are 3 papers, each one for 30 minutes, and out of the 30 minutes, there will be 25 minutes for the presentation and 5 minutes for Q&A. Please hold your questions until the end. And sometimes we do have a lot of questions, so please refrain from, after you ask a question, going into a follow-on question and so on and so forth, just to give an opportunity for other participants to participate in the Q&A as well. As you well know, the presenters typically linger around after their briefing, and you can catch them out in the hallway during the break or whatever. But we do have to stick to the schedule, so your cooperation would be greatly appreciated. With that, I think we'd like to go ahead and get started with the first briefing this morning. Our speaker is Mr. Adam Hendrickson with the U.S. Army. He is a sensors and systems engineer within the project manager UAS in Redstone Arsenal in Huntsville, Alabama. He has developed numerous sense and avoid requirements for the Army's sense and avoid program. He is the Army lead for the sense and avoid common controls and display IPT, and he is also an active participant in the U.S. government's sense and avoid science and research panel, and serves as the head of the U.S. delegation to the NATO sense and avoid specialist team. Please join me in welcoming Adam Hendrickson.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here today. So let's get started. I wanted to just, if you're not familiar with Sense and Avoid, I just wanted to very briefly give an introduction of where this comes from. Historically, Sense and Avoid is derived from See and Avoid requirements. And those requirements come historically from a requirement called to see and be seen. And that see and be seen requirement is still valid today. See and be seen is has led to requirements for things like aircraft lighting and other requirements in the NAS, but it still has applicability for sense and avoid development. But the direct traceability is from See and Avoid. So the goal of Sense and Avoid is to enable UAS operations in the NAS. The way that we developed our requirements for some of our safety performance requirements is, first we looked at individual system performance. If you imagine an optionally piloted aircraft, one that you could either have a pilot on board or you could operate it as an unmanned aircraft. We would want a sense and avoid system to be just as capable with that mode of operation in avoiding other aircraft as the mode where it had the pilot on board. And so this is that individual system performance. We also looked at interaction performance with other systems. Every mid-air collision involves at least 2 or more aircraft. And so we also looked at interaction performance. And this comes into play because the National Airspace System is really a system of systems. And collisions are a result of failed interactions. And so when we developed our requirements, we looked at the risk of interactions. And this comes into play, for example, if you have unmanned aircraft that are harder for other pilots to see and avoid. And so that may affect some of your sense and avoid requirements. Once you have a performance requirement, then you can allocate it to your various subsystems and your subfunctions. And so here, just very basically, you might allocate it to surveillance functions, avoidance functions. You may have a certain allocation to hardware failures, and then also to limitations and failures on the UAS. Perhaps it's avoidance limitations of the UAS or loss of link limitations. The main idea is to capture all the potential failure modes and capture that in your safety analysis. So the Army is the DoD lead for ground-based sense and avoid. And so what is ground-based sense and avoid? It's a type of sense and avoid where the sensors are on the ground rather than on the aircraft. And there's some unique attributes with that. One of them is, well, obviously, if the sensors are on the ground, then there's reduced onboard swap and onboard integration challenges. It enables a wide variety of UAS operation in a specific area based on the surveillance coverage. If you have an airspace picture, you're able to enable multiple simultaneous UAS operations with that airspace picture. And it's especially good for low altitude and operations near airfields because you're able to tune specifically to things like ground clutter, site-specific conditions. So this is our Block 0 system. On the left here, if I can get the mouse to work, you got our various radars. This is our radar network. It goes into our RTI DDS middleware, which is our which we use to communicate, and then that data comes to our fusion tracker, which fuses that information, and then that data is passed to our classifier to help clean it up, filter out any remaining clutter that may be in the air picture, filter out road vehicles, cars, things like that. And then it's passed to our algorithms to prioritize intruder aircraft and to provide alerts, and to our traffic and alert displays. Also, we have health and integrity monitoring, data management, and I'll go into a little bit more detail on some of these other subsystems. So the system has been designed from the ground up with safety in mind. The system is being designed so that it's DO-178C compliant to Design Assurance Level B. There's extensive health and integrity monitoring that's built throughout the system. There's data and integrity checks during startup and during operations. It's fault-tolerant design so that there's graceful degradation. There's not a single point of failure in the system. So if there's a single hardware failure, we can still operate in some type of degraded mode. So it has very high system reliability, and offers superior safety performance as compared with see and avoid. If you go back to that example of an optionally piloted aircraft where you could operate with sense and avoid or with a manned aircraft or with the pilot on the aircraft, the GBSAA system has more than an order of magnitude greater safety. in its performance and its ability to prevent collisions. So some of the design attributes. So our Block 0 system can support up to 6 simultaneous UAS operations in a given area. That is not an inherent design limitation for GBSA in general. That's just our Block 0 system. With the RTI DDS, we can add more if we need to in future blocks. It's not an inherent design limitation, but that's all that we needed for our Block 0 system. We can support operations in dense air traffic and in different airspace classes. The initial operations will occur in Class D airspace, as well as Class E airspace and Class C airspace. There's some information there on the RTI data distribution service, and that was a really important part of the design because it allows an open architecture that allows us to do upgrades and compete subsystems, and was vital to the safety of the system. That part of the subsystem is certified to Design Assurance Level A. So part of the health and integrity monitoring of the system, we have internal health and integrity checks. We have a sensor accuracy and registration monitor. So that checks that the radars are all in agreement when they see a target, that they all agree on where the location of that target is, and that assures that the radars are healthy. Each subsystem reports its health and integrity to a central monitor. So the system has 2 types of radars right now. There's organic radars, the GBSA radar. It provides 3D tracks, and it doesn't require any reliance on aircraft transponders. So we can track aircraft that are not transponder equipped. They can, for example, we can track gliders and ultralights. We can track aircraft with no electrical systems on board at all. We can track slow aircraft and fast aircraft. And so this helps us provide a complete air picture. We also incorporate an air traffic control radar feed at all of our initial fielding locations. That inorganic sensor provides good altitude information on cooperative aircraft, but there's some limitations because it doesn't provide altitude on non-transponding aircraft. And it wasn't designed for the intended function of sense and avoid. When you create an air picture for sense and avoid, there's some general attributes you want to look for. You want your air picture to be timely. You want to have enough time to respond. You want it to be complete, so you don't want to miss other aircraft. You want it to be accurate so that the information that you're given is good enough to make maneuver decisions with. So that includes 3D position, velocity, climb rates, things like that. The one that most people forget, this last attribute, is you want a clean air picture. You don't want a bunch of junk on the screen, and that's important so that you can interact with air traffic control, so that the operator has confidence in the system, so that you're not maneuvering unnecessarily. So here's a picture of a radar installation at Fort Hood, Texas. Here's a fully installed radar site, and this radar, here's a picture of the radar being installed on a tower. Here in this box here, we have battery backup in case the shore power fails. We have some amount of battery backup to continue operations safely and safely end operations. All right, the system has a fusion tracker. So this takes the data from the sensor network and creates a fused integrated air picture. what people don't realize is if you're going to be tracking non-cooperative aircraft, you're going to be getting altitude information from primary radar. And that's going to be altitude information that's not based on any pressure measurement. You need to fuse that data with transponder information that's pressure-based. So you'll have aircraft that are squawking with transponder data that's in a pressure altitude reference frame and a non-pressure altitude reference frame that you need to fuse. And so you need to be able to manage those differences. And it's not trivial. You can't just simply use an altimeter setting. There's atmospheric gradients that you need to account for in real time. There is inversions you need to account for. The differences between a geometric altitude and a pressure-based altitude, even corrected with an altimeter setting, can be thousands of feet. And so the fusion tracker accounts for those differences so that we can properly fuse an air picture to get that timely, complete, accurate, and clean air picture for the operator. Also, our fusion tracker is built for the intended function of sense and avoid. It's tuned to not just provide good position accuracy, but good velocity accuracy so that you can make maneuver decisions. And also helps to filter out ground traffic so that you have that clean air picture. So we have kind of three knobs in the system to help provide a clean air picture. So we have knobs at the sensor level, at the fusion tracker level, and then the final one is at the classifier. That classifier is the final thing that we can tune to filter out ground clutter, ground vehicles, and targets of non-interest so that the operator has a clean air picture to avoid other aircraft and to not avoid unnecessary or maneuver unnecessarily or interrupt air traffic flow and management the air traffic control is trying to manage and things like that. And this is really important for operations, especially in dense air traffic situations. And so it's vitally important, especially for operations at low altitudes and operations near airfields. So once you have a clean air picture that's high quality, then we have algorithms that can assess intruders. And so our algorithms provide alerts and prioritize intruders based on collision risk and provide that information to the operator. The algorithms have been tested again and again in millions of simulations run by MIT Lincoln Laboratory. And then also we've tested not just the algorithms, but we've tested the system with humans in the loop using the system with a fairly big human in the loop study with over 5,800 intruders. And the system performed very, very well in dense airspace. So, like I said before, there's no single point of failure within the system. Redundancy is important for safety. And so we have two displays, and there's two reasons we have two displays. One is for redundancy. Another is because there's two aspects of safety. One of those aspects is software assurance, and the other is usability. And those are conflicting requirements. When you talk to airworthiness authorities, they often are very adamant about software assurance. You know, they focus on DO-178, they focus on your software processes. They want that to be highly reliable, very high design assurance level. Well, that kind of a system is not exactly very usable either, because there's not very many graphics packages, for example, when you're designing to a very high design assurance level. And so we have two displays in our system. One is the alert display. It's designed to design assurance level B. It provides system safety through high software assurance and provides just the basic information needed to safely avoid other aircraft and maintain separation. The operator can use this alert display on its own and safely use the system. We also have a traffic display. This is designed to a lower design assurance level D, and it enhances system safety through high operator usability, because now we can add features and we have more flexibility in providing, using graphics packages and providing that usability and that functionality to the operator that operator needs in order to more effectively avoid aircraft. And so this is how we kind of tackle those two aspects of safety. And here's a picture during development of our traffic display. It's this bigger picture here. You can kind of get a feel for basically what it looks like. Here, I think there's about 9 green intruders. I think there's 3 yellows and 1 red intruder. The own ship, or the UAS, is this blue icon right here. This was during testing that was being conducted. And some of the usability controls is there's some zoom levels, and there's a map background to provide context, situational context. That's important for understanding airspace structure, having some idea of where an intruder may maneuver in the future, if you have some idea about airspace structure and things like that. This display here is the alert display. It's very basic and just provides the basic information needed to safely avoid aircraft. So some of our current efforts. So our Block 0 system is nearly complete. GBSA operations begin this year. We are fielding, and operations will begin initially at 5 Army fielding sites in the United States, in addition to a few Air Force sites. Block 1 development is already underway, and that will include some additional enhancements to the system, and those upgrades will be implemented and fielded to those existing sites sometime in 2017. Some of the efforts that are ongoing is we're coordinating with the other services and organizations on sense and avoid development. Most notably, we're coordinating with the Air Force on future integration of ground-based sense and avoid with airborne sense and avoid. The concept of operations there is ground-based sense and avoid provides really great safety for operations near airfields and at low altitudes. So the con-ops there is you may take off from an airfield using ground-based sense and avoid. As you transition as you reach the limits of ground-based sense and avoid radar coverage or sensor coverage, then you transition to your airborne sensor using airborne sensors, and you do the rest of your flight using airborne sense and avoid. Some of the reasons that's advantageous is airborne sensors currently struggle with providing a clean air picture at low altitudes. They struggle with ground clutter, ground vehicles, birds, all of these types of issues. Whereas if you have ground sensors with the ground-based sense and avoid system, you're not limited by SWAP, and you can finely tune and optimize the system to filter out the ground clutter and provide a clean air picture. A couple other things is ground-based sense and avoid provides you complete awareness around the aircraft. Most mid-air collisions happen around airfields, and most collision geometries currently in the National Airspace System are overtake geometries. So most of them occur when one aircraft overtakes another. So one of the risky situations is another aircraft running into an unmanned aircraft from behind. And so ground-based sense and avoid helps to solve that problem. So anyway, that's a future ConOps that we're working with the Air Force to enable those operations. Right now, so I talked about the 5 Army sites. Right now we're funded to help provide a system to the Air Guard so that they can take off from a Class C airspace and transition up to Class A airspace with a Reaper aircraft, so that they can then, once they're up in Class A airspace, then they can transit to where they need to go. And then once they're done with their training, they can come back, and then they can transition from Class A airspace using ground-based sense and avoid back down to the Class C airspace at the airport. And so that's some exciting development that we'll be helping the Air Guard with. And in the future, we have future plans for a mobile ground-based sense and avoid system to help with natural disasters and things like that. Beyond that, we're involved with NATO development of international sense and avoid guidance for cross-border and international operations, so that a sense and avoid system developed and built in one country can be used in another country. And that NATO guidance will hopefully be public release so that it can be used and help influence other international standards to help, ICAO and other standards-making bodies. I think that's all that I have for now. So we can begin the questions. Thank you.
Questions for Adam? Yep.
Intended audience?
Yeah, the flight control, is it the operator delivered to the autonomy system on an aircraft to help it?
Okay, so right.
Adam, you want to use the microphone?
Oh yeah. Great question. So right now, maneuver algorithms are not sophisticated enough to automate maneuvers in all types of situations, especially near airfields and for interactions with air traffic control. So for the near future, if you're going to be operating in those types of environments, near airfields, interacting with air traffic control, interacting in areas where there's airspace structure, maneuver algorithms aren't sophisticated enough. So you'll always have an operator in the loop for the time being. For the time being, there will be an operator in the loop.
Is it delivered so that they have to install on your software package, or they get a stream of data that they can reinterpret as they see fit?
So for right now, our displays are they're built to DO-178 certification standards. So right now, it depends on how it's employed. So for the Air Guard, for example, they will have a standalone display put inside their GCS. The Army's going to use it separately, but that's the future plan.
Okay, the gentleman in the middle shirt.
Is the surveillance area defined?
Could you use the microphone?
Is the surveillance area defined by the overlapping coverage of the organic sensors?
Okay, so by the overlapping coverage of the organic sensors.
You said there's 6 of them.
So the number of radars is site dependent. So we bring in an air traffic control radar feed, and we add as many or GBSA radars as we need. So there can be just, for example, there might only be one GBSA radar, depending on the area that we want to enable, and the amount of airspace we want to enable. So it depends.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, hi. Can you talk to how you get beyond line of sight weather for use in your system? And then also, can you speak to any vision that you have for how this capability can be, adapted for more broad use by, the civilian, users?
Yeah, so I think ground-based sense and avoid makes a lot of sense for civil use. It's once you create the air picture, it can be used by multiple aircraft, whether it's small or large. If you want to use it over an urban environment, or you want to do package delivery or something of that nature, once you have an air picture and you want to enable multiple simultaneous UAS operations, you can share that air picture and enable all those operations for the civil use. So I think there's a lot of potential there for enabling civil use. I know that SC-228, RTCA, that they're doing a Phase 1 MOPS. The Phase 2 MOPS will include, or may include some GBSAA work in it. And so they'll develop standards for civil use of ground-based sense and avoid. And we may help to influence some of those standards. As far as the weather, I'll talk to you later about that.
Before we go any further, is Tom Driscoll here? Okay, we have our next speaker. Okay, in that case, we'll have to cut off the discussion. I'm sure Adam will be available after the session for any follow-up questions and so forth. So let us